The bloodied boy was sitting on the ground, leaning on a large stone. Near him lay the bodies of dead and still alive people. The boy hoped that he would never feel so helpless again. The young man raised his gaze and looked at the enemy, thinking that this time would be different. A giant monster, similar to a huge lizard, appeared before the boy's eyes. He shouted at the top of his voice, calling all the survivors to fight. Painful memories from childhood began to arise in the boy's memory. The little boy, hiding behind the blocks of stones, looked at the same giant monster and called his mother. The boy, who was not jokingly frightened, with bitter tears streaming from his eyes, called his mother louder and louder. The child's eyes reflected the most terrifying thing that a person can see. The monster held the body of the boy's mother, who was still alive, in its mouth. The mother stretched out her hands trying to grab the last moment of life, and the helpless boy could only scream to his mother again, hoping that it would somehow help. The young man remembered all the words of those scumbags who said that such a fool as him would not be able to achieve anything, no matter how hard he tried. The boy admitted that they were right. No matter how much life he put into training, B rank was his maximum. And the S rank? No, it's useless for him to even hope for an A rank. Gathering his strength, the boy stood up, determined to fight, and took the sword in his hands. The monster, seeing what it thought was its future victim, opened its mouth and howled to frighten the warrior. The boy gripped his sword tighter, signaling that he wasn't even going to give up. He may be an idiot, but even in such a seemingly hopeless situation, he will win. The warrior was not going to leave the monster alive. Quickly rushing at each other, the battle was started. In the boy's eyes, along with hatred, revenge flared up. The mad look was ready to incinerate anyone. The young man attacked first. From a strong blow on the lizard's head, the boy's sword sank into the monster's body. The force of the blow was so strong that the boy was thrown back several meters. Crying out in pain, the monster understood that this was where his end would come. Blood flowed incredibly quickly from the lizard's wounded head. Knocked back by the blow and tired from the fight, the boy lay on the ground. He could not move his bloody hand. But it was worth it, because now his worst enemy has received a fatal blow. The aggressive boy rose from the ground and was ready to attack again. The wounded monster was still crying out in pain. Fear began to appear in his eyes. The guy jumped up high and started a new attack. The young man landed near the very forehead of the lizard, which still had its sword sticking out. Hatred and madness still burned in the boy's eyes. He pulled the sword out of the monster's head with only his teeth. Against the background of the giant lizard, the warrior seemed like a drop in the ocean. But he had enough strength to overcome the enemy. The monster howled once again from the pain that the young man had caused him. The frightened, pain-filled eyes of the monster looked at his, whom he had previously thought, an insignificant enemy. The boy said that this was the last monster that needed to be defeated. Blue energy began to be generated everywhere, surrounding everything. A portal to another dimension began to open. The young man still held the sword in his teeth. Tired of the battle, the boy surrendered to the flow of energy mixed with blood. A bloody hand lay on the cold ground. The portal transported the boy to a large clearing in the forest. The young man's body was lying on the ground. It was not clear whether he was dead or alive. It turns out that the magical portal transported not only the boy. The monster's unconscious body lay nearby on the lawn. Suddenly, the young man let out an ironic sneer. He scoffed at the absurdity of the situation. Could the loser, as others said, be able to defeat the monster? But in reality, the boy was far from laughing. A sneer, already painful, came out of his mouth again, and bitter tears fell from his eyes, like when he was a child. Let's move to the boy's recent past. A group of young people stood in a clearing surrounded by thick fog. A red portal to the afterlife opened before them. Disturbing conversations began in the group. The young men asked each other about the recent news. It became known about humanoid monsters. The young man informed his fellow travelers that such monsters can turn a person into a mummy and drain all his mana. A girl standing nearby said that she had heard about a recent similar incident in Sunbuck. Another young man who was a bit indifferent said that many people are talking about similar cases of humanoid monsters, so everyone needs to be careful, and especially Jin Suho. He could not lose his vigilance. Suho only agreed with this, as if he was already used to such statements in his direction. The petulant young man pretended to be worried about Suho and, after asking if he was offended, reminded him that the only Suho here was a B-rank, who was said to be too weak to fight monsters. The bully taunted Suho again, reminding him of his past success at the country's top elite academy. At the words that it was a great honor for the group to go to the dungeon with such a genius, Suho clenched his fists to hold back his anger so as not to attack the mocking interlocutor. Despair and incomprehension prevailed in the young man's eyes. Why did everything end like this? Cadet Jin Suho had the highest score. The boy considered himself talented, thought he would be able to avenge his parents and would reach ever greater heights. However, no matter how hard Suho worked, it proved impossible for him. As if someone had drawn a line, saying that the young man should not jump over it. Every time fate laughed at him, he consoled himself by saying that he would gradually get better. In this place, he once again realized that he was not capable of more. The boys called Suho to enter the dungeon with them, and then laughed at this genius in private, hoping that he would not be too much trouble. Suho admitted that the failures of the past meant nothing now. The boy wondered why he was so fond of going to dungeons, not even looking at the limit of his capabilities and mocking others. Perhaps because of the desire for revenge, and so that others no longer see the limit of his capabilities. No amount of taunting would stop Suho, even if he was thought to be crazy, so he confidently walked towards the portal. Once in the afterlife, the boy heard screams and was quite frightened himself. There were cries for help from everywhere. Suho moved at the sound to help the injured. On the ground lay a frightened, weakened, and bloodied boy, taunting Suho. He prayed for help. Looking up, Suho saw him. The same creature that took his mother's life 10 years ago. Clenching his teeth, the boy was determined to fight. Past resentment and thirst for revenge flared up in the young man. That is why, wasting no time, Suho grabbed his sword, which sparked with magical energy, gaining a mighty power. The warrior did not want to lose to the monster. Aggression took over Suho. In his eyes, the future defeat of the giant lizard was red. Holding the sword firmly in his hands, the boy attacked the enemy. Let's return to reality. The boy's bloody hand lay on the cold ground. The portal transported the boy to a large clearing in the forest. The young man's body was lying on the ground. It was not clear whether he was dead or alive. It turns out that the magical portal transported not only the boy. The monster's unconscious body lay nearby on the lawn. Suddenly, the young man let out an ironic sneer. He scoffed at the absurdity of the situation. Could the loser, as others said, be able to defeat the monster? But in reality, the boy was far from laughing. A sneer, already painful, came out of his mouth again, and bitter tears fell from his eyes, like when he was just a child. Turning his head, the boy saw the dead body of a monster near him. He was clearly not happy with what he saw. He wondered why he was doing all this. It wouldn't bring his parents back to him. He didn't want that. The boy's eyes were already swollen, but the bitter rivers of tears did not stop flowing to the boy's temples, and then fell to the cold ground. If only Suho was a little stronger. Bright green energy began to cover everything around. Someone unknown began to be miserable and was very disappointed to see his future heir. Suho's eyes opened in surprise, and all the tears that had just been on his face dried up, as if he hadn't cried at all. The boy got up from the ground, panicked by the incomprehensible situation that appeared before him. He understood that he was in an unknown place, and decided to ask himself about it, not even expecting that someone would answer him. Su-ho already thought he was dead, but suddenly someone from behind him started answering his seemingly pointless questions. Very surprised and even frightened by such a surprise, the boy slowly looked away. In front of him stood a handsome, long-haired man, whose silhouette was surrounded by bright green energy. The man looked down on Su-ho. Su-ho noticed that the man was dressed in ancient clothes and decided to ask a little uncertainly who was talking to him now. Laughing, the man replied that Su-ho had lost his mind because he could not find any other explanation for such impudence. The stranger was frankly surprised that the boy did not know him. The young man only asked that he answer the questions. With 2 fingers, the man lifted the boy's chin and, looking directly into his eyes, answered with a mocking smile that he was a heavenly demon. It was clear that the stranger was very proud of his status. But what the demon said next surprised Su-ho even more. The man named the boy as his sole heir. The heavenly demon is known to all lovers of the subculture. He is a character in The Sky Behind the Clouds. This demon is rightly called the strongest character. For Su-ho, the heavenly demon was just a fictional character in the novel. The boy had a lot of questions. He couldn't understand why the heavenly demon was real, and how it happened that he was his ancestor. After reading the boy's thoughts, the demon cheerfully replied that he was indeed his ancestor. It seems that in the boy's world, the heavenly demon and Murim have become part of the legend, but there is no mistake, Su-ho is a descendant of the heavenly demon. But it seems that the young man was not happy at all. Su-ho was surprised that the demon had read his thoughts, and the demon in turn replied that it was the easiest thing to do. It was very hard to believe that it was true, but everything that happened did not seem like the result of a spell or magic. Su-ho wondered why the demon brought him here, and the demon was amused to hear that. The heavenly demon humiliated the boy and pointed him to his place, calling him a pitiful and banal being. The angry young man wanted to deny the demon, but the demon interrupted him, stating the real reason for his presence here. The heavenly demon is looking for another demon. His true and only enemy is the blood demon. Speaking his name, a terrible rage ignited in the eyes of the heavenly demon. Resting his hand on the stone, the angry demon said that if it wasn't for the blood demon, he wouldn't have found himself in such a humiliating situation. The heavenly demon was punished for disobeying the visit by turning him into a spirit. It is very difficult for a heavenly demon to rule this world and seek out a blood demon without a physical body. Suddenly, some brilliant and seemingly crazy idea came to mind. Su-ho, as if sensing danger, asked the demon what he was muttering there. Already with a certain respect, the heavenly demon turned to his heir, saying that he possessed a useful body. Placing his palm on the boy's shoulder, he voiced his crazy idea: Su-ho needed to give his body to the heavenly demon. No wonder the frightened boy looked into the eyes of his ancestor and asked if he heard everything correctly. The demon replied that it should be an honor for the young man. The demon himself would return to earth in the boy's mortal shell. Having pushed the demon away from him, the indignant boy did not understand why he was giving his body to him. The bright green energy that until now simply outlined the demon's silhouette began to grow into a raging stream of energy that could destroy everything in its path. In an exalted voice, the heavenly demon said that Su-ho simply had no other choice. The demon thought that he could scare the boy with his magical abilities, but surprisingly, the young man was able to resist the danger. So much ominous and strong energy just passed through Su-ho's hands and for some reason did not seem alien to him. With a sneer, the boy said that the demon's plan had failed and that he must be disappointed. But the demon only laughed ironically and quietly. The demon began to recall moments from his life. The promises that sounded to you now seemed like an empty sound to him. These memories greatly disturbed the demon, but did not give him peace. The heavenly demon asked the boy what his name was. Suho said his name a little hesitantly, and the demon smiled back and began to speak. The demon wanted to make a very profitable and important offer to the boy, and Suho interrupted him. The young man replied with incredible anger that he did not want to hear anything. The heavenly demon struck below the waist. He started talking about Suho's family, which the boy clearly did not expect. The demon said that the boy had lost his family because of his weakness, and that everything the young man said about strength was empty talk. All this is in the past. Suho's thoughts are too naive, there is no way to bring the parents back. Rage began to arise in the boy's eyes from the lack of control of the situation. There was no way he could stop the demon from reading his thoughts, so he decided to threaten. In response, the demon just laughed very loudly and was even happy that the boy had so much aggression and desire for revenge. The demon said that the boy was no better than the pitiful nothings who couldn't jump above their heads, who had as many vile emotions. Mocking Suho, the spirit said that the boy tried to work on himself, but after a while he realized that his limit was too low. The guy was incredibly angry. Having shouted, he ordered the interlocutor to close his mouth and finally start to act. The demon offered the boy a favor for a favor. In turn, the demon tells Suho a new method of training and will develop the abilities of the air. The guy was very surprised by such an offer. Suho needs martial arts knowledge. And in all of Murima, you cannot find arts stronger than the heavenly demon's martial arts. Suho began to hope to improve his abilities. The demon dispelled all his doubts and assured him that with the help of these techniques his heirs would be able to become stronger. The thought that the boy would finally be able to become stronger did not let him go. The demon's demands seemed to the young man worthy of such a reward. Remembering his mother's defenseless face in the mouth of the giant monster, Suho refused his ancestor. Even for such a reward, the young man will not give up his body. It was funny for the demon to hear the rejection from the boy, because he knew what his heir was thinking at that moment. The heavenly demon agreed to conduct a test for Suho, to which the boy was very surprised and did not understand what other test he was talking about. According to the conditions, if Suho passes the test, the demon will teach him his inner energy techniques and other skills, and if he fails, the boy will give his body. Since the demon did not tell what the test would be, the boy hesitated whether to agree or not. But if this is his last chance? Will he not regret it later? Suho asked if his ancestor would definitely abide by the conditions. He replied that for the sake of his honor he was not sorry for some technique of internal energy. Determined, the boy still agreed and asked what the test would be. Pleased that he had succeeded in persuading his heir, the spirit asked Suho to stand before him. The demon instantly snapped his fingers. Everything around was covered with red dust. Unexpected by such a schedule of events, Suho did not know what would happen next. He did not understand where he was, but suddenly such a familiar and painful picture appeared before his eyes. The crying boy tenderly turned to his mother, and the mother, calling him with gentle words, asked him not to cry, although bitter tears were rolling down her face. The tearful mother asked her child to hide here and soon other people would find him. Suho recognized what he saw as the most painful event in his life. It was his mother, and the child was little him. The little child asked her mother not to go, not to leave her. That woman understood, she must sacrifice her life for the life of her child. Having wiped away the last tear, the mother threw herself into the arms of death. The monster attacked unexpectedly. Stuck in the monster's mouth, the woman had no chance of survival. All that remained for her was to stretch out her hands to her son, full of hope for a miracle. But the miracle did not happen. The guy thought it would be better if he died with her at that moment. Suho, already an adult, watched the young child's uncontrollable shock. In a moment, the child simply ran away, not wanting to watch the painful death of his mother. If he had died then with his mother, there would be no need to feel so miserable now. Su-ho was simply crushed by the thought that he was worthless and powerless. The shadows that arose from everywhere began to openly discuss Jin Su-ho. Someone said that the guy is skilled, but his position in the rating continues to fall. Or maybe he is simply not capable of more. And someone from the shadows rumbled that talent is the most important thing for a hunter, without it there is nowhere. Talent is given at birth, and without it you are worthless. Some shadow heard that Su-ho doesn't want to work, even though he doesn't think anything of himself as a hunter. In his place, she would have left a long time ago. Isn't it great that a guy stays even with no talent? Aggression and a thirst for revenge prevailed in the young man. Clenching his teeth, he stared at the shadows with hatred. What do they even know about him? He put his whole life into training to be where he is now. Behind the boy, a picture from that terrible day appeared again. The body of his dead mother hung from the monster's mouth. He felt as trampled, dead. The young man's heart began to fill with anger. With the help of heavenly demon's power, Su-ho was able to defeat all the monsters that appeared before him. The demon whispered in the boy's ear so that he would not allow history to repeat itself, thereby spurring the hunter to action. Shocked, Su-ho stood there and couldn't believe his eyes. A woman was lying on the ground in front of him and was quietly saying his name. It was his mother. A depressed and tearful woman reached out her hands to her son, asking him why he allowed her to die that fateful day. Was all Su-ho could do just run away at that moment? Painful tears flowed down the mother's cheeks. She was cold. She called her son to come and hug her. The inveterate demon, whispering from behind, called the boy to action, and the young man just stood as if buried, not believing in the reality of what he saw. The demon continued to pump. Is the boy so weak that he cannot even approach his mother, whom he longed to see more than anything in the world? He doesn't want to lose her again, does he? Jin Su-ho was already close to his mother, one more step and he would dissolve in her arms. But suddenly, the young man coldly said that he was not going to approach his mother. The heavenly demon was surprisingly surprised by his descendant's decision. Suddenly and unexpectedly for everyone, Su-ho, holding the sword tightly in his hands, struck his mother. The sword went right into the woman's stomach and passed through her body. Splashes of blood flew in all directions. A stream of brown liquid also gushed from the mother's mouth. Su-ho's real mother would never have blamed her son for her death, and the hunter understood this well, and looking menacingly at the werewolf pretending to be his closest person, memories of that terrible day appeared in his memory. Su-ho's own mother would never let her son die with her. She urged her son to run, hide, she instilled in him a thirst for life. Even being on the verge of death, she asked her son to live. Continue to live. His mother was not the kind of person who could blame her son for his death. The werewolf dissipated, leaving behind a bright light. Su-ho was very disappointed in the demon, because he did not expect that he would manipulate other people's emotions. But still, the boy won, and the demon still couldn't understand how he couldn't fool an ordinary boy. Suddenly, the energy around the young man changed from diamond green to bright blue. It seemed to the demon an interesting sight. Still, he admitted that the boy had won. The young man had little recognition of the victory and turned to the ancestor with a demand for the promised reward, techniques that will help Su-ho become stronger. But the heavenly demon filigree replied that there was no need to hurry, because the usual transfer of energy would be enough. The angry and indignant boy realized that he was simply deceived. He wanted to deny the demon and the demon interrupted him with the stunned news. The ancestor is not going to take the boy's body. Not going to yet. He can only do this when Su-ho himself asks him to do so. This information made the boy's heart feel a little lighter, but there was still restlessness in his eyes. He wasn't sure if the heavenly demon could be trusted, but at least his ancestor was really strong. If the boy resists the spirit, then he will not be able to do anything, otherwise he would have taken the body without any hesitation. Su-ho agreed to the demon's proposal, but warned him, if he does any stupid things, he will drive him out. The demon rejoiced at such news and immediately decided to check how long his heir could hold out. The demon began his rite of passage into the boy's body. Everything seemed to be surrounded by diamond green energy in the dust. The young man could not understand what was happening. The ancestor said that it should be an honor for the boy to serve the heavenly demon. Su-ho turned his head in time to notice the approaching danger from afar. A sharp sword flew directly at the warrior, sparkling. The boy was able to step aside in time and prevent his death. The sword dug into the ground, sinking nicely into the soil, making it clear that the throw was extremely powerful. Frightened, Su-ho heard a familiar voice from behind him. The demon said that this time he was making an exception for the descendant and was giving him all his power. A huge group of people appeared before the hunter. Their faces were covered with masks. These were dangerous enemies from the blood cult and Su-ho needed to defeat them all. The girl warrior was the first to attack the boy. Her eyes were full of black blood, and her face was covered with black capillaries. Deftly swinging her sword, the girl made it clear that she had already destroyed Su-ho's like this many times. Scared to madness, the hunter heard a new order from his ancestor. A voice from behind told the hunter to kill them all. Without expecting it, the boy deftly raised his sword and immediately repelled the girl's attack. Her blood splattered in all directions, and her dismembered body flew several meters away. Some of the blood cult began to panic at what they saw, not expecting such a strong opponent at all. The boy completely absorbed the spirit of the heavenly demon. Su-ho's body evolved. He got new abilities. The young man received part of the heavenly demon divine arts. No longer afraid of the impending danger, the boy was ready for another, repeated duel. Dozens of warriors attacked the young man. Courage shone in the boy's eyes. With just one swing of his sword, Su-ho dismembered more than one enemy body. The guy looked composed and confident. With the power of the heavenly demon, he was not afraid of a single enemy. As he continued to fend off the attacks of the oncoming opponents, the hunter continued to marvel and magnify his ancestor's strength. The more Su-ho lets his ancestor's spirit into him, the stronger he becomes. But the boy did not even think of doing this, because he understood that if this happened, the demon would completely take over his body. The boy needed to concentrate, so he decided to destroy the enemies in front of him first. The hunter used the ice spear method, B. Ice spears dug into the bodies of opponents. Enemies fell dead. Su-ho did not stop using his ancestor's powers. Applying the ice spear and the freeze method again, the boy not only continued to fend off new attacks from the enemies, but also began to masterfully attack himself. Blood began to drip from the boy's wounded cheek, but the hunter just brushed away a drop of brown liquid as if nothing had happened. The demon noticed that the boy had good concentration. The heavenly demon thought that once he got the heir's body, he would be able to transform it into something more worthwhile. However, there were too many dangerous enemies from the blood cult, and the boy himself was already very exhausted, especially since he was only a novice. The demon decided to help the boy, but he refused to fight back, ready to face his opponents alone. The ancestor ordered the boy to lower his sword and he, as if under a spell, did what the ancestor told him. The weapon fell to the ground with a crash. Su-ho couldn't understand what was happening. He stood as if numb and waited for what would happen next. A new wave of danger swept over the hunter, and he just froze, unable to move. The power of the heavenly demon began to be absorbed into Su-ho's body. He began to discover new abilities of his strong ancestor. The boy began to learn the true deadly force. The young man used the first demon technique. His silhouette was bathed in a stream of diamond green energy. He took the first step as if bewitched. With that step, the energy shot out divine power, destroying the blood cult army without a trace. Their dead bodies flew everywhere, leaving behind only a bright light that signaled the end of this battle. The sky was covered with fluffy white clouds. The sun shone from the horizon. Like dawn, the sky sparkled with pink colors, and it would seem that nothing had happened, no matter how excited Suho was. He could not believe that he had overcome a multi-headed army of opponents. A heavenly demon appeared out of nowhere behind the boy. Ancestor said that the strength of a hunter would not be enough for such a fight. The boy fell to the ground. Violent emotions took over him. Aggression was burning in his eyes, and he realized that he was simply tricked, and now the demon would be able to completely take over his body. The young man's eyes began to close, and the last thing he could see was the contented face of the heavenly demon. The guy lost consciousness. Suho opened his eyes. Frightened, he got up from the bed of the medical ward, unable to realize where he was and what was happening to him. His ancestor, who has been here for a long time, was waiting for Suho to come to his senses. The young man became much calmer when he realized that the demon had not taken his body. The spirit answered with offense that he was not some villain who did not keep his words. And Suho, in turn, replied that his ancestor was just such a villain. Having already calmed down, the boy asked if his use of the power of the heavenly demon had anything to do with the fact that the ancestor was able to take control of his body at some point. Mocking, the demon replied that if it was true, the boy should give him his body. Suho refused the ancestor with a negative. Remembering how the demon's power had completely possessed him and destroyed a horde of deadly enemies, the boy glorified the divine arts of his ancestor. The young man had never met anything better in his life. This power was unmatched. And that's not even half of the heavenly demon's divine art. In a serious mood, Suho announced that he wanted to avenge his parents, and for this he would need the power of a demon. In order to obtain the power of the ancestor, he needed to kill the blood demon and take away his inner energy. The spirit said that if the boy understood what needed to be done to get the power, it would not be bad if he gave his body. Suho only laughed at the demon's attempts to carry out his plans. The young man without emotion pulled the dropper out of his hand. The cloth, to which the dropper and needle were attached, with still fresh blood, fell to the ground. The hunter firmly replied that he was the one who would use the power of the ancestor. The spirit was interested to see what his wayward offspring was capable of, so he allowed the boy to try to master his power, if of course he could. The boy went to the window and, opening it, looked at the night sky, sprinkled with bright stars. The young man thought about his life and understood that he did not have long to live, but it would not change anything. He realized that he can become stronger again, and now his life will change. With a defiant attitude, the boy did not plan to give up. Suddenly, the door to the boy's room creaked open and someone entered. The stranger said that everyone was talking as if Suho had died a long time ago. At the sound, the boy turned around and was very impressed. Shocked, Suho knew the stranger well, but he couldn't say that he was happy about her arrival. A long-haired beautiful girl appeared before the boy, as if he saw her in a dream, and confirmed that even in the hospital ward he looked better than usual. At the same time, the lights were on in all offices in the multi-story office. It was restless and hectic. All the workers had their own problems, and suddenly the commander received a call. In a chaotic atmosphere, employees ran back and forth, answering phone calls and carrying huge stacks of documents. The commander had a very untidy appearance, and it was obvious that he was very tired from the working day. He needed to check the report on the mutating gate. The man was asked a few more questions about the gate, and he only answered that all related materials should be transferred. It was necessary to stop all reports. A stout man standing next to the commander asked what the management would do about this problem, because this is the 8th incident with humanoid monsters draining mana from hunters. Footage of blood cult warriors appeared on the man's tablet. The man added that the situation is much more complicated by the appearance of mutated gates. The completely exhausted commander replied that the management still does not have a good idea how to present it and they are doing everything wrong in general, because what is the point of mutated gates? And his colleague ironically replied that they probably did not even expect that such a terrible creature would suddenly appear from the gate. A colleague suddenly asked if the commander knew about the survivor. One person came back alive and it was someone they knew very well. And the one who survived was Jin Soo-ho. Upon hearing his name, the commander ignited with incredible aggression. He did not expect to hear the name of his old enemy. Old memories from the past began to wake up in the man's memory. The commander was lying on the ground, Jin Soo-ho's sword glittering in front of his face. In that match, the man lost, and that resentment lives in him to this day. Soo-ho surpassed Cha Si-yun to become the academy's top student. The commander quietly and worriedly repeated Soo-ho's name, and the colleague cheerfully added that he was also very surprised when he heard this news. Grumpily, the commander replied that it was probably just luck for him to think Soo-ho was nonsense, as he had never had any talents, much to his colleague's surprise. The commander said that lately the department of his colleague with whom he had been in dialogue all this time, Wai-suk, has been doing very poorly, so he better get back to work. Of course, the colleague was very offended by these words. In response, Wai-suk blurts out that they all graduated a long time ago, but when it comes to Jin Soo-ho, the commander starts talking complete nonsense. The man once again remembered that ill-fated duel in which he lost and ended up on the ground in front of Jin Soo-ho. He had never felt so humiliated. Having lit a cigarette, the commander in this way tried to dull the fatigue he got from exhausting work. Holding his head, he continued to think about Soo-ho, because he still goes to the dungeon. Let's go back to Soo-ho's ward. The guy said the girl's name, and she was very happy that he still hadn't forgotten it. With a cold look, Soo-ho ordered the girl to go home, because he had nothing to say to her anyway. Sitting on the doorstep, the girl said that although Soo-ho had nothing to say to her, she wanted to give him some advice. Changing to a stricter intonation, the girl asked, "How much more do I need to repeat that Soo-ho is not a hunter and he does not have any abilities, so that he stops risking his life?" Still with that cold look, the boy replied that the girl would not interfere in his life. The interlocutor said that she was only telling the truth, and Soo-ho interrupted and pointed to the door. Clutching the hem of her skirt, the girl sternly asked if Soo-ho would realize that he was not a hunter when he was on the verge of death. She wanted to add something else and Soo-ho ordered her to go. The girl pursed her lips because she was powerless to explain something to the young man, and simply got up from the steps. She opened the door and left the ward as Soo-ho wanted. The demon asked the boy who this brave girl was and what happened here. The upset young man ordered the spirit to be silent and not to mention the visitor. After leaving the hospital, the upset girl got into the car. The driver with the black glasses asked if she had discussed everything she wanted with Soo-ho. Leaning on the car door and lowering her gaze, the girl answered that not very much. The driver shared his opinion that it is much better to honestly share his experiences with the boy. The girl asked him not to worry about it, because Soo-ho cannot be changed. Soo-ho obtained the inner mind energy technique of the heavenly demon divine art, basic. The spirit wanted to mock the boy, because according to him, Soo-ho mastered this technique too slowly. The demon would have continued his story if the young man had not interrupted him and told him to shut up. In fact, the heavenly demon wondered how Soo-ho was able to master this technique so quickly. Even for his heir, it was too strange. Soo-ho and the demon were heading towards the F-rank gate where trainee hunters go for training. They were sure that they were going in the right direction, because the spirit had already calculated this place by the smell of the blood demon. He had definitely gone there. Soo-ho didn't understand the point of the blood demon draining the mana from the trainees, and his ancestor didn't necessarily understand his enemy's motives. The spirit and the boy approached the sky-blue gate. There were a lot of people near the portal. Everyone stood in groups and talked to each other. A young man approached Suho and told him that he had to confirm the hunter's identity. The boy told the man his name and told him that he had a B rank. Hearing this, the man was embarrassed and asked if the boy knew what an F-rank gate was. Suho replied that he had personal reasons for entering this gate. The man said with a smile that it would be an honor for them if such a hunter would go with them. The two boys standing nearby began to discuss why Suho had come here. One of the interlocutors clarified that this is the same famous guy. Jin Suho. Like, it can work all over the world. The second interlocutor had heard about this guy who had high hopes but could not achieve success. The first guy asked his friend to speak more quietly, because Suho can hear everything. Still, it was unclear why he was here. The boy said that Suho came here to brag about his reputation to the newcomers. How could only a person who had high hopes become like this? If Suho hadn't entered the academy with the highest score, he would have lived well with B-rank status. And it is very sad. But life is very unfair. Everyone stood and chattered merrily about something different. Only Suho stood far away from everyone and did not speak to anyone. He remembered how once, like all of them, he went to the dungeon with joy, because he hoped to become stronger. The demon found it amusing to watch his heir reminisce about his past glory. Indignant, the boy said that he had already repeatedly asked the demon not to read his thoughts without permission, and the demon answered with a smile on his face that the young man looked very pitiful from the outside. On the one hand, Suho wants to use the power of the heavenly demon, and on the other hand, he still remembers his worthless past. Suddenly, someone interrupted their conversation. A girl was standing in front of the young man. Surprised, Suho asked what she needed. The girl was incredibly shy and even afraid to look the hunter in the eyes. Still daring, she handed the boy a piece of paper with a request to get his autograph. The guy was even more surprised. He didn't even expect that someone could ask him for such a thing. After watching all this, the company of young men recognized Suho as the same lazy boy with the highest score in the academy. Someone from the company said that Suho came here to take the rookies' places. The hunter heard this and looked at the boys. The girl who was still standing in front of Suho said that she must not be capable enough to get his autograph. The boy watched the group of young men with great interest, so he asked what the girl said. She immediately took back her words and even got a little scared. The fact was that she was one of the survivors in the dungeon that Suho was cleaning, and if it wasn't for him, she would have died then. The hunter, shocked by such a confession, watched the girl. She was embarrassed and still could not look him in the eyes, and he could not believe that he had saved someone, because all the time he considered himself worthless. The young man smiled at his thoughts, but rather because he had such a bad opinion of himself. Handing the girl a sheet of paper, he hastily hurried off, adding at the end that he would sign later, after they cleared the dungeons, unless she changed her mind, of course. The girl's eyes lit up with indescribable joy. She could not believe that she would receive an autograph from her idol, so she agreed to such conditions without hesitation. After thanking her for the yet-to-be-received signature and for saving her from the dungeon, the girl ran to her friends and excitedly shared the news, while Suho just stared at her in complete astonishment. Suho turned to the demon and asked if only A-rank hunters and above could deal with blood ghosts. The demon, which no one had seen before, turned from a tiny green haze into a full-fledged spirit, and replied that Suho had stated everything correctly, but there are still many monsters that surpass them. According to this, the strongest of those who will go with them is C-rank, so if Suho doesn't save them all, they will die. With a firm look, the boy declared that he could not reverse his decision, which he had made on the first day, and therefore he was obliged to protect these people. The young people lined up and prepared to go to the dungeons. The curator introduced the group to their commander for the day, Kong Ben Cheol, a C-rank holder. The boy with a satisfied face was proud of his achievement. The curator also added that they had to work really hard to get Kong Ben Cheol to come here today, so the group should listen carefully and learn from him and remember that while they are in the dungeon, they should behave very carefully. Finally, the woman mentioned Su-ho and introduced him as another special guest, a B-rank holder. As if on command, the entire group looked around and looked directly at Su-ho, who had been standing behind and a bit distant from everyone else until now. Kong Ben Cheol assured that if Su-ho will take part in this raid, there will be no unpleasant incidents. Cheerfully holding out his hand for introduction, Kong Ben Cheol said hello. It was an honor for him to meet a B-rank owner. Sensing uneasiness, the boy held out his hand in response with a wary look. Is it another one who wants to start a fight? In his mind, Kong Ben Cheol disliked Su-ho. He considered him worthless and the fact that he got his rank only thanks to his past reputation. He thought he was stronger than Su-ho and wanted to prove it. The demon, being able to read thoughts, watched everything that was happening with a complete lack of understanding of the situation. He could not predict exactly what Kong Ben Cheol was trying to achieve with such actions and what kind of cunning plan was born in his head. After crossing the portal gate, the group found themselves in another dimension, ready to face the monster. Suddenly, someone began to worry, because it was too dark on this side of the portal, but the self-confident Kong Ben reassured and encouraged everyone. Kong Ben Cheol said that this is just an F-rank dungeon and the main thing is to believe in your abilities and act as you should, then nothing will happen to them for sure. But Su-ho understood that this was complete nonsense and looked at the new captain with condemnation. Anyone could tell that this dungeon was not F-ranked. It's at least A rank and above, it's a wonder that Kong Ben Cheol didn't notice it. The demon encouraged Su-ho that the likes of Kong Ben Cheol, worthless people, always talk too much and were like that even in his time when he ruled Mirim. The passive boy ordered the ancestor to shut up. Su-ho understood that he was an uninvited guest here and even if he tried to introduce something, nothing would change. The only thing Su-ho can do is to use Kong Ben Cheol. The boy told the captain that if he was the boss, Su-ho would follow all his orders. It would be good to form an advanced unit and rear. Kong Ben Cheol agreed with Su-ho's suggestion, but he didn't really understand what exactly the hunter was trying to do with this behavior. Did Kong Ben really need Su-ho to decide such simple things? Well, then it will be even easier for the captain to reach B rank than he thought. The captain announced his new order. Due to the fog, it can be difficult for the group to see, so it is better to keep close to each other. Kong Ben believed that their enemies were not only monsters and that this campaign was a kind of test for a true hunter. But the demon along with Su-ho just laughed at the captain. Su-ho asked the spirit to be quieter so that no one would notice him. The demon asked if the young man already knew what was hidden in this dungeon and if he would definitely be able to face the new danger. Su-ho realized that the demon had long known where the danger was hidden. Suddenly, the ground under the boy's feet began to crumble and fall into the abyss. Everyone in a panic began to fall into the space that was under the layer of the newly whole earth. Su-ho yelled at the group to run, but it was too late. It seemed that fear had seized the young people, they were frightened and did not know what to do next. Su-ho's frightened eyes were directed towards the horrible picture. Bold and cocky, Kong Ben Cheol appeared before the group in a deadpan manner. His eyes no longer showed signs of life, but simply stared blankly in front of him. The boy's mouth filled with blood and it spilled out under the pressure of a painful wound. Someone's hand cut through the boy's heart. The demon just smiled, looking at the absurdity of the situation, because the enemies had surrounded them from the beginning. It was a humanoid monster. It turned out to be a young girl. The same girl who had just asked Su-ho for his autograph. She laughed out loud, looking straight at Su-ho with a crazy look. Rivers of bitter tears rolled down her cheeks, but a crazy smile still did not slip from her lips, which created an absolute dissonance of this situation. The girl begged for help, asked the boy to save her. The young man's frightened expression changed to completely helpless. He cursed out of hopelessness, because he didn't know what to do next. The girl pushed Kong Ben's body away with one hand and it fell to the ground like a dead weight, and red blood splashed everywhere. Suho confidently held the sword in his hand, ready to defend himself at any moment. The girl was indescribably happy to see the hunter, as if it was fun for her to see her future victim alive. Fear and unpreparedness for the further development of events took over the boy. Jumping up, the girl approached the hunter in a moment and gave him a wild smile, signaling that it would not end just like that. She was thirsty for blood. Their swords collided in a brutal duel between two indescribably desperate forces. The difference between them was that for the monster it was fun, and for the boy it was a struggle for life. Skillfully fending off the girl's attacks, Suho ordered everyone to run away. He had already guessed that it was a blood ghost, he was only interested in how long she had become one. The demon, once again reading the boy's thoughts, answered in his voice that the girl had become a ghost as soon as they entered the portal. Suho, repelling the monster's new attack, pushed her back a certain distance, buying himself a few seconds to gather his thoughts, think about what to do next, and talk to the demon. She became like that as soon as she came here. The boy asked the spirit if he knew anything about this dungeon. The ancestor said that this place was one of the many blood demon prisons created in Murima in the past. This place is called Mirror of Evil Deeds and Sins. The girl firmly raised her sword again, and getting ready to run up to her victim, stood in a fighting stance. In this place, those who have done bad things are gathered and turned into monsters. Suho was able to jump to the side in time to prevent the girl's attack. The boy asked what this girl could do, but the spirit's answer shocked him. She killed someone. The surprised young man turned to look at the ancestor and understand if he was telling the truth. But suddenly, something flashed in the boy's field of vision. The girl's sword flashed right by Suho's face. She jumped at the hunter again, but he didn't even think to fight back, shocked by everything he heard. With the help of his power, he plunged into the girl's recent memories. It was night. All of the young girl's clothes were stained with a brown liquid. She held a kitchen knife in her hands. On the floor directly in front of the girl lay her new victims. The girl herself unemotionally and unceremoniously looked directly at the bodies of already dead people. The knife fell from her hands. She killed them. I killed my father and mother. From these words that just came out of the young girl's mouth, at least some emotions began to appear on her face. It was greatness, satisfaction from what was accomplished, without any remorse and a tear on the cheek, only joy reigned in the girl's eyes. Everything was bloody. The floor, the table, the walls were smeared with the fresh blood of the dead people on the floor. A little girl did not fit into such a landscape at all, and yet, she was the one responsible for such an atmosphere in their house. The girl felt sick either from the smell of blood, or from the act. The boy was completely confused by what he had just seen. He understood that these were not invented memories, that everything was like that in reality. But why did she do it? The voice from behind could see the young man's restlessness. The spirit told to kill the girl, because not only did she try to harm Suho, but she was also the murderer of her own parents. There was no need to worry about her. Helplessness reigned in the hunter's heart. How could he kill her? How could he kill that shy and helpless girl who didn't even have the guts to look him in the eye, who wanted to get Suho's autograph instead of killing him, the girl he once saved, for whom he was an idol? That is why, during the girl's next attack, he stepped aside and let her fall straight to the ground. Suho didn't want to kill the girl. He dropped the sword from his hands. The outraged demon could not understand what his heir was doing. The ghost once again reminded Su-ho that the girl's main goal was to kill him. The guy has no reason to save her life. The hunter replied that she begged to be saved, especially since the spirit himself said that he needed to become stronger in order to stop running away like before. To this, the heavenly demon could only respond with an indignant look. The same applies to finding out the truth. The boy needed strength. But this time he has it. This schedule of events surprised the demon even more. Su-ho could definitely survive if he killed her right now. The boy's heart sank in his chest. But if death is the only way to get out of here, he will be disgraced for the rest of his life. Better to die here already. Heavenly demon energy began to emanate from Su-ho's body. His silhouette began to outline again with diamond green energy. If he cannot change anything, then he does not deserve to live. The spirit panicked and didn't understand what his descendant was trying to do. Su-ho has not yet fully mastered the martial arts of the heavenly demon, and wants to sacrifice his life not just for a stranger, but for a stranger who is trying to kill him. A new power ignited in Su-ho's eyes, and although he did not know how to fully control it yet, he completely rejected the demon's words and said that he would deal with everything himself. The demon realized that Su-ho was enlightened, and it manifested in him just as it had once in the demon himself. The girl showed human feelings that still live in her. Sincere eyes and a sea of tears were confirmation of that. She asked Su-ho to retreat, to run away from danger. The stubborn guy was not going to back down. The girl tightened her grip on her combat tool and again, with wild passion in her eyes, as if she had just begged Su-ho to retreat, attacked the hunter. Squeezing the girl's dagger with her bare hand, Su-ho's fresh wound spurted blood. But no emotion appeared on the boy's face. He only looked dead into the eyes of the girl, who did not expect such actions from her victim. A crazy flow of energy flooded everything around. For the human eye, only a bright flash that appeared at the place of the two opponents was visible. The night sky flickered above the opponents' heads. The mutilated and weakened girl was thrown several meters away. Looking down, she sat on the ground, Su-ho, whose silhouette was surrounded by bright green energy, watching her. The heavenly demon was right, Su-ho had not yet learned the basics of his divine art. Anger and resentment from the defeat flared up in the girl's eyes wet with tears. She made her last attempt to defeat the hunter. The guy made a kind of shield from the energy of his ancestor. This shield knocked the girl back and she flew away again for a certain distance. Su-ho needed to think things through very carefully before doing anything. The girl did not understand why Su-ho was helping her, because she is a bad person and the hunter understands this. She knew that Su-ho had seen her memories. The girl looked angrily at the young man. Tears did not stop flowing from her face, but the crazy smile was no longer there. Su-ho still didn't kill the ghost because he wanted to hear how things really were from the girl herself. He wanted to hear why she did that, and then he would decide whether she was evil or not. This time it was Su-ho who attacked. The girl wanted to fight back and even attack back, but the flow of energy grabbed her and confused her. The spirit was very surprised when he saw his heir using the palm and fist technique without training and the necessary knowledge. The demon was eager to take over Su-ho's body faster. The boy sent a wave of green heavenly demon energy straight into the girl's heart, causing her to almost lose her balance. There could be no mistake, this was his last chance. Strength and inner energy should have been enough to kill the girl. The boy told his ancestor that even from nothing you can learn something. But it is much more difficult to protect than to kill. Su-ho, concentrating, gathered all his strength and dug into the girl's heart with his hand, channeling the insanely powerful heavenly demon energy at her. From this, drops of brown blood splashed from the monster's mouth. Its eyes were already frightened, instead of burning with animal fervor as in the dungeon. The girl fell down dead. Su-ho's fist, with which he hit the girl, was covered in blood. The energy that had just erupted from everywhere now only outlined the hunter's silhouette. The spirit said that the young man had stolen the power of the blood demon from the girl. It was surprising that the boy was able to do what he had not studied. Su-ho touched the girl's neck to check if she was still alive. The boy didn't know what his world was like, but in it only with the help of struggle could you save your life. The girl turned out to be alive. Suddenly, in the distance, a purple flash loomed, engulfing everything around at once. The boy's sword gained a new power called Iron Sword, B+. Su-ho's sword sensed the power of an otherworldly being. The boy could not understand what kind of new danger awaited him and what she needed from him. Suddenly, a gray fog lit up all around and Su-ho could not see anything through the veil. Turning, the hunter saw his new enemy. The man, his eyes blazing with red fire, was the complete opposite of a heavenly demon. His clothes were tattered and patched, his face was covered by a white mask, and his hair was long, black, curling in the wind. He said that he did not expect to see such a union, a heavenly demon and his heir. Su-ho noticed that the man's energy was similar to that of the heavenly demon, but it was different, it was oppressive, and it made him really scared. It was clear that the heavenly demon was not at all happy about such a meeting. Blood demon. This was the eternal rival that the heavenly demon had talked about. This being is known for having initiated the appearance of gates in this world. I wonder why someone like him is in a low-level dungeon. The heavenly demon said that this was not the real body of his enemy. The real blood demon is many times stronger than this nobody. It seems that the blood demon, like the heavenly demon, cannot fully use its power. If this is not his real body, then how much stronger is his own? The boy thought about it, and fear reigned in his eyes. After reading his heir's thoughts, the spirit replied that the blood demon was 10 times stronger. The demon that is now in front of them is not even 1/10 like the one that was in Murima. The blood demon turned to Su-ho. He couldn't believe that the hunter was still alive. The young man did not know that his name was known to the blood demon, and he replied that how could one not know the only descendant of the heavenly demon. The spirit informed Su-ho that since it was not the blood demon's true body, the time for revenge would come sooner than he thought. The heavenly demon channeled the full force of his energy, hoping to destroy his fiercest enemy, but the answer did not have to wait long. The blood demon channeled the same stream of energy. The green-pink battle of two contradictions came together here and now. The heavenly demon said that the blood demon was the one who gave the order to kill Su-ho's mother. This news made the boy feel cold in his chest. He could not believe what he heard. The blood demon laughed at the boy. In his opinion, people are stupid creatures. Whatever misfortune happens to them, they translate it into simple bad luck. The enemy called Jin Su-ho very naive, and this angered the boy. The heavenly demon understood that even if their enemy was 10 times weaker than a true blood demon, Jin Su-ho was too weak to overcome such an enemy. The spirit has no reason to interfere, and therefore only death awaits the hunter. Su-ho confirmed his ancestors' remorse and said that the blood demon was not one that the boy could defeat now. Suddenly, the young man said something that the heavenly demon did not expect to hear at all. Revenge for his mother burned with a great flame in the boy's heart, and therefore, he offered his ancestor to inhabit his body and overcome the common enemy. The heavenly demon agreed to such a proposal and said that they might even win this battle. The spirit asked if the boy would regret such a decision, and he, with passion in his eyes, ordered the demon to proceed to action. The demon began to inhabit the heir's body. The blood demon did not expect such a course of events and wanted to stop the ritual, but it was already too late. Su-ho mastered the boundless power of his ancestor and was ready to take revenge for his mother, and the heavenly demon finally mastered the body and could take revenge on his old enemy. The enemy realized that this way the goal of destroying the heavenly demon became somewhat more difficult. The heavenly demon mockingly remarked that the blood demon was talking too much for someone who wasn't that capable. The heavenly demon sent a huge stream of energy that knocked the opponent off his feet. The energy didn't just describe the boy's silhouette, it radiated and filled the entire horizon. The boy looked at his fiercest enemy, who was lying on the ground like a spineless body. The heavenly demon ordered the demon to stop squirming the victim and stand up and fight with dignity. The bloody demon laughed at his opponent's words. He said that he was just pretending to die to please the enemy. The heavenly demon wouldn't be able to defeat his opponent until he got used to his new body, but at least Suho's body was better than the demon's body grown in complete chaos. The blood demon decided to check if it really was. Opponents prepared to meet in a fight. Their swords crossed in mortal combat. The two fiercest opponents looked into each other's eyes and did not even think of conceding victory. Their fight continued. The sky demon was attacking. But his opponent skillfully repelled all the danger that appeared before him. The blood demon attacked with small spears. Suho's body was thrown several meters away. But killing the heavenly demon was not so easy. Suho acted as if nothing had happened. The heavenly demon managed to get used to the body, even though it did not have enough internal energy. And what else was to be expected from the strongest person in Murima? Still, the blood demon was very interested in defeating his enemy. With a serious attitude, the heavenly demon raised his sword and was ready to attack once more. Suddenly, the ground around Suho's body began to split. Stone blocks flew up. The blood demon couldn't let their fight end in a place like this. On one of the stone islands, he climbed to the heavens. The heavenly demon considered this kind of behavior by his opponent to be simply ridiculous, because he does everything to kill the enemy, and the latter is concerned with such details. Blood demon said that his opponent was always at a level that he could never reach. And nothing has changed, but the blood demon is not going to give up, he will definitely destroy his enemy and he wants to do it beautifully. The heavenly demon considered his rival's behavior disgusting. Rising higher and higher, the blood demon said at the end that he would pray that the sky demon would become stronger before their next meeting. At such a great distance, the heavenly demon could not reach his enemy, although he was right, Suho needed to become stronger. This time, the heavenly demon had to let the opponent go. The group returned to the place where it all began. Everyone was very exhausted. After defeating the blood ghost, the heavenly demon's divine art greatly increased. Suho gained the ability Ghost Blood Absorbing Demon. Suho didn't understand what happened. He did not feel the power of the heavenly demon in himself. The young man wondered why his ancestor had given him back control of his body, but he was unlikely to be so lucky next time, so the boy needed to become stronger. Become strong enough to not lose to a blood demon with a tenth of the strength. Suddenly, Suho's thoughts were interrupted by someone's cough. The boy was surprised by what he saw. The same mutilated girl who first asked for an autograph and then tried to kill him was lying on the ground in front of him. Suho accessed some of the girl's memories. In a dark room, a girl was sitting on the ground with her head in her lap. Suddenly the door opened, and along with the light, a woman entered her room. She was holding a piece of paper in her hands. The woman handed this sheet to the girl. It looked like a test result letter. And it was clear that the results for the girl were disappointing. The woman spoke to Jian and asked if she knew how old she was. Uncertainly, the girl turned to her mother, who, sparing neither her strength nor her daughter, slapped Jian. Falling down, the girl took hold of her stricken cheek, and her mother scolded that Jian was already 20 years old and it was time to show at least some achievements in hunting. Full of aggression, the woman crumpled the sheet with her daughter's results in her hand and asked why she is still so worthless. This is a story that people who know her simply don't tell. A story that people are interested in watching, but in which they would not like to be. The woman did not understand why she should spend money on such a worthless person as her daughter. With tears in her eyes, the girl apologized, and her mother, as if obsessed, began to scream so that she would not apologize. Let's move to the recent past. It was an ordinary sunny day. Two girls went to school. Ji-En's friend asked if her mother had scolded her badly yesterday. Ji-En pulled her shirt sleeve. Her friend noticed this and asked if the girl was cold, because Ji-En always wore things with long sleeves. With a worried look, Ji-En replied that she was just catching a cold quickly, not wanting to continue the uncomfortable dialogue. A friend noticed that it was 27 degrees outside today, and something unusual caught their attention. A man in traditional clothing was sitting on the ground and selling all kinds of jewelry on a small table. Ji-En was surprised because she had never seen him here before. Her friend said that this is a quite popular point for selling jewelry. The man asked if the girls wanted to buy something. Ji-En asked in surprise if she had heard correctly that the man was addressing her. In response, the man handed the girl a fragment of a mirror, calling it a talisman. With a mischievous smile, the man said that such a talisman is very necessary for a girl. Ji-En could have refused. That friend, mesmerized by the beauty of the talisman, persuaded the girl to buy it, especially since they have tests next week and luck won't hurt. The girl hesitated, wondering if she really needed this fragment. Still, Ji-En bought a talisman. Satisfied with the purchase, the girls praised the talisman for its beauty and attractive price. The man was only happy, because he knew what consequences this purchase would lead to. Disappearing without a trace, only red smoke dissipated in the man's place, and the girls cheerfully went to school. After a few days, the teacher took turns calling the names of the students, and they came up and took the results of their test. It was Ji-En's turn as well, which scared the girl for nothing. Handing the girl a sheet with the result, the teacher asked the girl to do better next time. Ji-En did not like the test results. After sitting down, she expressed her disappointment with the talisman to her friend, who in turn was surprised and asked what kind of talisman the girl was talking about. Ji-En recalled that she bought a talisman that looked like a fragment of a mirror a few days ago. But it still didn't help her friend to remember what purchase the girl was talking about. This situation confused Ji-En and she assumed that she had confused everything due to fatigue. The girl grabbed the front door handle and pulled it down. Ji-En was afraid to go home. Her face was troubled when she entered the house. The silhouette of her angry mother appeared in front of the girl, and only her eyes burned with aggression in the dark echo of the room. The mother held out a sheet with the test results. She demanded that her husband see the results of his daughter. The man, reading the newspaper, was not at all surprised by his daughter's poor results. The man took a stick in his hands and ordered his daughter to follow him. The frightened girl had no choice, she had to obey her father. She was shaking with fear, her body was breaking out in a cold sweat. The door of the room slammed shut. In the dark room, only a small crack between the curtains made sunlight. The father pushed his daughter, holding a stick in his hands, and the mother stood behind, watching everything that was happening.
If you have watched up to this point, then I am very grateful to you, because this is where the video ends. If it's not difficult for you, then like this video and subscribe to my channel. And if you want to continue this story, then write in the comments. Thank you all, I love you all.